Reiki? What's that about? Let's find out. Curious. What's that about? How does that work?
Slink wants to know.
Welcome to Slink Wants to Know. I'm Lauren, and today I have my friend Lucas here. And Lucas, what are you going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about the metaphysical.
Okay, sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I've
Yeah.
always been curious about. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, there's a lot to tell, but I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
I have been a Reiki master for, we'll say more than 5 years, because math to me right now is just irrelevant.
Okay.
So a while. And for those that don't know, Reiki is a Sanskrit word meaning like wheel, basically. It is where you are tapping into the universal life force to help heal yourself in a variety of different ways and feel, sense more of the universe and what it has to offer for us.
Awesome. And that is something we've had a few discussions in the past about this, but nothing really in depth. And I know very little about it. I know kind of what it is, but I don't know a whole lot about it. And what you just said, you kind of answered my first question, which is what is Reiki? And
Oh,
so you kind of got that one already. My next question was, where did it originate?
it originated in Japan. Well, okay. We'll say Japan. That's the easiest
Okay.
answer.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of how old it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's been used for a long time.
Gotcha.
It became, I think, more well known in the most previous century,
Okay.
uh, but used in even times of. I don't want to offend anyone that's overly religious or anything, but in the time of Jesus, that is actually the what is known as him having like the healing hands.
Mm-hmm.
That is Reiki.
Gotcha. So you said it involves like energy and that kind of a thing. In kind of layman terms, exactly what would it like? What does it involve?
Like the physical
Yeah.
process of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it involves, well, for one, you can do Reiki by yourself, whether you are trained in it or not, or you can go to someone that is, a Reiki practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
uh, like myself. And it's basically, you get into like a meditative state. The practitioner does, the the client. Um, they can also try to get into a meditative state, or they could just. A lot of times, people just sit there while I do it, and I just make sure we start off with like a breathing exercise just to kind of slow your heart rate and calm
Mm-hmm.
your body and mind. Um, and then I start the magic. So what happens is that the energy flows through, uh, comes in through like the top of your head and goes through your
Mm-hmm.
body, and it can just be basically like shot out of your hands and back out of your head,
Mm-hmm.
and just because the energy flows so much all
Mm-hmm.
around through in and out everything. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you could have you could have like Reiki shooting out of your elbow.
Okay. Yeah. And I think
It's
in
not like
some.
the traditional way to do it, but there's there's people tend to find their own comfort level of what
Mm-hmm.
like what
Mm-hmm.
they feel
Mm-hmm.
for themselves to do it. But I find for myself that with my hands is
Yep.
the easiest way. You don't have to physically touch anyone. It's mainly done without touching anyone. That's why I like doing it through Zoom and things like that. It can actually be a little bit more powerful, I
Okay.
think, just because of it. It's going into different streams of energy that are like wired, but
Mhm.
constant and wired, and
Mhm.
it just kind of
Yeah.
amplifies it. I
Yeah. And I think one of the first conversations we ever had about it, I was asking you. I had been to physical therapy before, and they had me do all these kinds of things. And what you were explaining, like what it is, I had experienced during physical therapy. And I was like, I didn't know what it was, you know. And it was an interesting experience, but to hear like a word for it now, like Reiki or whatever, like I hadn't heard that until more recently. Is it something that's more like widespread or practiced more now than like in the recent past, or is it just way more
it's
just popular?
practiced. Yeah, it's being practiced way more now than it was when I first got into it, and
Mm-hmm.
even a lot of it got amplified during the pandemic
Yeah,
because people were at home and watching
yeah,
videos,
yeah, absolutely.
all that.
Mm.
Also, some people just try to make money by doing
Yeah,
it. Like
yeah,
I've been involved in different streams of people on like YouTube or even Instagram
mm-hmm.
doing Reiki, and yeah, you can tell when
Yeah,
someone's not for the intention. But
mm-hmm.
um, I've I've found that people do Reiki every day of their life and don't even realize that they're doing it.
Okay.
So, say you have like a headache, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're stressed out. What's one of the first things that most people do when they're stressed out or they have a headache? What do you think that is?
Try to relax. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, but something physical to comfort them.
Hold their head.
Yes.
I don't know.
And with Reiki,
That's what the yep,
that's what you do. You go
yep.
over the head, and
Mm-hmm.
but the difference between like the physical touching and the comfort, because that doesn't always bring like full relief
Mm-hmm.
from it, rubbing it,
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also, sometimes Reiki doesn't bring full relief either, but it does help alleviate it a little bit longer
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
than what it would be just like putting an ice pack on your head or rubbing your temples or
Right.
anything like that. It's with the Reiki. Say that you had a migraine and you went to somebody for some Reiki to help with your migraine. So what the Reiki healer would do was once they're tapped into this stream of energy of this consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you're able to. Some people can see it, some people can feel it. Just the streams of energy. So you can go in and with that universal life force, you can manipulate the energy around them that's flowing through them that's causing a blockage
Mm-hmm.
or something within them that's essentially causing this the headache.
Yeah. And that's kind of another question that like I had was like, what's the biggest benefit that you see with that? Or like you were talking about like headaches and like that. You said that it's not necessarily like doesn't completely get rid of things, but like it's helpful. And I think like it's good to try all kinds of things. You know what I mean? But
Oh,
with that
definitely.
in particular, like what do you see as like the biggest benefit opposed to maybe some other kind of practice or anything like that?
um, well, it ultimately depends on the individual. um, I personally like to view Reiki as not an all encompassing healing.
Mm-hmm.
um, it's something. It gets kind of tricky. I'm a firm believer in a mixture for the individual of both Eastern and Western medicines.
Okay. Yeah, and I think
Not
that too. I mean,
not everyone can take a medication that will help this,
right.
but they're different like it's same with like acupuncture. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
tries to quit smoking and they go to their doctor prescribes them well they Chantix or Wellbutrin, whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
that they give them, and that might work for some people, but other
Mm-hmm.
people it can cause other issues for them.
Mm-hmm.
So some of those people might go see a Reiki healer to help
Mm-hmm.
assist them. I have a client that is actually in that situation. They were put on Chantix. The Chantix was causing too many problems for them. So they came to me, and the way that I am with that combination of the Eastern and Western,
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously not a medical professional,
Right.
but I'm never going to tell someone like don't take that medicine ever again.
Right.
Like for some, within
Mm-hmm.
reason,
Yeah.
obviously. But
Exactly.
so like if you start to implement these different things, whether it's Reiki or acupuncture, or just straight up just meditation on your own, it can be incorporated with it. It will help amplify the natural healing abilities and power that your mind and your body have.
Because it is like all natural. Is there like that kind of leads into, are there any negatives to it? Like, have you seen any like negative things come from it?
I mean, it really depends on your definition of negative, but for me, the only negative, I wouldn't even call it a negative because I tend to look at things from a broader and larger picture.
Right.
Um, but I've noticed that some people aren't ready to feel and recognize emotions or memories that can come up during
Mm-hmm.
a healing like that. That's a big thing. Even not just with Reiki, but
Mm-hmm.
because I do like past life regressions and connection to your higher self and things like that too.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are just scared
Yeah.
because the emotion or even the thought, like the the thought of the unknown scares the
Mm-hmm.
crap out of people.
Yeah.
And some people just aren't in that space, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
That might not be your path. Like your path could be like endure this ignorance, like in what I see as like suffering because
Yeah.
but that's their like that's their path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what one of the lessons is in this life for them.
Yeah. And like you were saying earlier, it's like a very individual like thing. Each person would react to it differently. Like we've talked
Yes.
before about like trying to meditate and stuff, and like anytime I try to meditate, not as much now, but like if I was to try it now, I might not do that. But like even the idea of it in the past, it was like if I was like anxious or anything, it just made me more anxious if I tried to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see that. Um, but it sounds like you look at it as kind of like a helping tool that may benefit people and
Yeah. Yeah.
mm,
Totally. It is a tool.
mm-hmm,
It is a metaphysical, spiritual
mm-hmm,
tool.
yeah, absolutely. And kind of going back to, you had said that you'd been a, a practitioner or a master of it for like 5 years. So
Mhm.
if you don't mind sharing, like what exactly, like how did you find out about it, or what made you interested in it, and then kind of like what does it take to become a practitioner or a master of it?
Sure. So I was introduced to Reiki the first time. I had gone to a metaphysical store to look at crystals, and I
Mm-hmm,
really went there at first to see a psychic.
mm-hmm,
Uh, and then just looking around through the store, I started looking at things, asking questions, and was reading books while I was there, and
mm-hmm,
so I had somewhat of an idea of what Reiki was, but then I left the store and really didn't think anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, my aunt, who is a healer, she's like a medical intuitive healer,
Mm-hmm.
uh, had asked me if I had ever received Reiki, and she recommended for me to find someone just
Mm-hmm.
because of different things that I had going on in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I found one. It was actually the psychic that I saw at that that
Mm-hmm.
metaphysical shop, and that's actually who I started learning from.
Okay.
Was her. Um, so there's Reiki 1, Reiki 2, and then there's Master Reiki,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just one form of Reiki. There's quite a few different ones. Um, the first one that I was trained in is yeah, Usui. That that was his name, Usui Reiki,
Okay.
um, and that is the most common form of Reiki that most practitioners
Mm-hmm.
have been attuned to.
Mm-hmm.
So
Are
to
there
start,
like kind of different schools of thoughts, like in different ways of practicing it? Is that how that? Okay.
yeah, yeah. Different levels, different dimensions. You can go down quite the rabbit hole talking
Okay.
about not just the whole metaphysical world in general,
Mm-hmm.
but just even Reiki in of itself,
Mm-hmm.
because of different variations. What
Mm-hmm.
it really is what is comfortable for you, what you feel. Like following your
Mm-hmm.
intuition, knowing and
Mm-hmm.
believing in yourself and
Yeah.
the
And
the
so
ability.
like yeah. So you talked about what goes on when you're doing it, like physically, like your hands and it's the energy. What is like? Is there a certain experience that you have while you're practicing it with someone?
Yeah, there is, and it's different for every client.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it depends on what they are being treated for. Um, but there is one constant with it, with the practice of it, is that when uh, the Reiki is activated, you feel it. Like I feel it in the palms of my hands. If you were to physically touch my hands, you would feel how hot they were.
Okay. Yeah.
And throughout the session, my hands just get warmer
Okay.
by the minute.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Sometimes they swell up
Wow.
from it just because of the flow of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've learned different techniques along the way to kind of alleviate that so that it's
Mm-hmm.
not as intense as what it was in the beginning. Just because I have been practicing for that
Yeah.
long and kind of that much in tune with my body to
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. So when you are practicing it, it's very much a mutual experience, and it's like it's a almost like a becomes like one situation. Like it's two people, but like the energy and all that, going
Yes.
back and forth, it's very much like a mutual experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Mm-hmm.
very similar to like a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so like there's psychic people that are psychics that they can physically feel what happened
Mm-hmm.
to your loved one that's no
Okay.
longer
Yeah.
with us.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing. So there have been times where I have felt, I don't even have to be practicing with anyone. When I was working at the hotel, I
Mm-hmm.
would pass by people and I could feel what was going on with them.
Okay. Yeah.
And there was a few times where I'd see someone passing in like the parking garage, and 2 3 hours later they'd come in to eat, and I'd be their waiter. And so then I would try. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I could read people fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
So if I felt it strong enough and I felt comfortable enough that
Yeah.
they were open enough, I would bring it up to
Mm-hmm.
them and
And
ask
it's
them like, "Is
and
this?"
you've told us all some of those stories, and I always find it so interesting when you're like, this happened, and then I mentioned this, and then and it's like very interesting, and
Yeah. We all have the ability,
hmm
but we are not all on the same path.
yeah, and I know that you are. I don't know. You seem very sensitive to like energies and things. Like, is it hard for you at times? Like you said, you're just like walking past someone. Does that ever really like get to you when that
Yes,
happens?
yeah, it does. Yeah. Um, but then I have to remember to like step out of
Mm-hmm.
myself in those moments and
Mm-hmm.
think what is going on in your personal life right now to where
Mm-hmm.
that would affect you.
Yeah.
Which ultimately it's an exchange of energy. It really
Mm-hmm.
is. And it's a beautiful exchange, no matter
Mm-hmm.
if it's painful mentally or physically, like it's an exchange that in my eyes, and it needs to happen
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason. I mean, there are no coincidences. So
Yep. Absolutely. So we kind of covered how you got into it and kind of the benefits of that and your experience with that. If someone was interested in finding someone that practices Reiki, how would they go about finding someone? Do you happen to know like where to look for someone or like to check to make sure that like you would talk some people don't always have the best intentions. Do you have any idea of where to look for people?
yeah. So like I mentioned, the first one that I ever saw was at a metaphysical store, like a
Mm-hmm.
crystal shop. You can always go to one of those stores, and a lot of times you'll go in and there will be like a cork board with different, business cards or
Mm-hmm.
flyers or things like that. And most times they're all whoever's up there is legit
Mm-hmm.
because a metaphysical store
Right.
shouldn't have like
Mm-hmm.
allow people that really aren't. And most of the
Right.
time when you're in a store like that and the healers post their stuff there, if the people that own the shop or working there aren't even healers themselves, like
Mm-hmm.
there's still
Some
there's a lot of knowledge in those
yeah,
places. There's
yeah,
a lot
and
of
some
connection.
they have
Even
their
online,
reputation out there.
yeah. And even online, like you can go on Instagram. I don't really do TikTok or anything, but Instagram, there's a lot. YouTube, there are quite a few, and it really depends on how you feel with that individual. Like you could meet 10 different Reiki healers and not like not connect with them for whatever reason, and then the 11th one you're like, yes, this is the person that I trust in this situation, because it's
Is it
an
like a
intimate.
relationship, like
Yeah,
kind of like
yeah.
a
It,
okay.
it
Mm-hmm.
it's a very intimate
Mm-hmm.
thing and experience, because for one, the client is allowing you to get inside of their energy stream, of their mind, of their body, and their soul, to like really break things down, like and help you. And that in of itself is very healing, just to
Mm-hmm.
allow someone in.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that ties back into like we do things every day that we don't realize is
Realize
Reiki.
this.
Like
Yep.
like we don't. Yeah, it's
Energy's
life is
everywhere.
beautiful, and it's just but
Life is
it
beautiful.
could
Life
be
is
it could
weird
be
and
pretty
strange
effed
and
up, but it's
yep.
beautiful. Like this.
Beautiful, strange, weird, all the things.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah, yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share that we haven't touched on, Lucas?
Well, I can give you like the basics of Reiki.
Okay.
Um, different ones. So there's seven
Mm-hmm.
different energy points, the main energy points within your body. The first one is the root chakra, which is basically like the genitalia area. It's symbolized by the color red.
Mm-hmm.
Your root is like your survival, your security, the primal prana energy.
Okay.
That's where that is stored. Um, then the second one is your sacral chakra, which is like it's like right in between like your groin and your belly button.
Okay.
Uh, and that one is orange in color, and it is relationships, sexuality, intimacy, things like that. The third one is there's different names for it. I call it the solar plexus. Some people call it the navel. There's Sanskrit words for it, but I don't try to pronounce those words. And that one is yellow, and that one is like your desire, your inner strength, self control, things like that. Then the fourth one is your heart, which is the center of your chest. That one is green in color, and that's love, compassion, self esteem, things like that. The fifth one is your throat. That one is blue in color, and it's obviously your throat, um, the physical area of your body. And that's creativity, your speech, individual needs, and will, like your willpower.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the sixth one is your third eye chakra.
Okay.
That one is indigo in color. That's your intuition, your insight, psychic awareness, CSP, things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then the seventh one is your crown chakra. That one is violet, like a rich violet color.
Okay.
That's like your higher consciousness. It's
Okay.
the level of enlightenment, inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
creativity, things like
Yeah.
that. And those are just the main seven within your body. There's ones
Okay.
outside of your body in your aura.
Mm-hmm.
Inside, it's debatable as to how many there really are. But from the things that I have read and have had conversations with other healers with, there is at least 105
Oh
within your
wow.
body. 105
Okay.
different points of your body
Mm-hmm.
that kind of have these
Mm-hmm.
streams and collections of energy.
So when you're in a session with someone and you have your hands around them or however that works, if you
Mhm.
feel like certain energy at one of those points, is that tell you like there's possibly a blockage with whatever that designated spot is?
That's exactly what that means.
Okay. So
Yeah.
and then if you do happen to like notice there's a blockage, or is that the
Mhm.
correct term? Like a
Yeah.
blockage? So
Yeah.
then what do you do then if you realize there's an issue at a certain point?
I personally like to do what I call raking.
Okay.
Like you rake through it. So
Okay.
I will focus on that area as long as I need to until I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel the sensation that I
Okay.
feel. Just to break up the breakage.
Mm-hmm.
It will go through every system of your body. And as it's like breaking up and going through your body, the client, uh, sometimes they can see it, they can feel it going through their body. Um, but as that's happening, that's when you basically fill them up.
Okay.
So you channel in that that energy and fill up that void, that space that you just
Okay.
cleared out. And it also helps filter out the blockage or the negative
Mm-hmm.
energy that was built up or stored within the body.
And then is there like for the client then after that, is there like a sense of relief, even if they don't realize what exactly is going on at that
Most
point?
times,
Okay.
a lot of times with Reiki, I've noticed no matter what they came for, the client cries.
Oh.
And it's not like an emotional cry.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of like the physical release.
Like a
So
release of.
I
Mm-hmm.
look at crying as just a physical release of
Mm-hmm.
an emotion that is too not too an intense emotion that we can't put into words.
Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. For sure.
Yeah, because and if you think about it, like taking a shower, the rain, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's cleansing.
Cleans.
You
Yep.
cry,
Exactly.
you're
Mm-hmm.
cleansing from the
Mm-hmm.
inside out.
Yeah. I haven't ever maybe heard it exactly like that, but that makes a lot of sense for sure. So there's 7 different spots, and then there's several others beyond that. Just the 7
Yeah,
main, and then there's several.
yeah,
It's really interesting. Are
yeah.
there other techniques or schools of thought or practices that are similar to Reiki?
Yeah,
Like, mm-hmm,
they're called, different things. Some
mm-hmm,
people just say I'm just an energy healer,
mm-hmm,
um, and then um, like the religious aspect of it, they I've heard it called just like laying hands on
mm-hmm.
someone. Like
Yeah,
it's the
absolutely.
same. It's all the
It's
same
energy.
thing. It's just
It's
yeah,
energy. Mm-hmm. So
it's
it's just
energy.
it's different ways of thinking about it or getting in touch with that. Some
Yeah,
people, like you said, it's a religious situation, and you said it's like a spiritual thing. Reiki is, and that's not
well, yeah,
necessarily the same, but along
we're
the same
all
lines.
we're all spiritual beings
Hmm.
having a human experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we could have some more conversations about other things too, Lucas. Would you
Oh,
be down for that in the
definitely.
future?
Definitely, for
Yep.
sure. You know it. Yeah.
I like I said that first time we talked about Reiki, I'm like, this happened when I was at physical therapy. You're like, sounds like it. Like,
Yeah.
okay. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
well,
Yeah. And if anybody that's watching this wants some more information that's easily digestible,
mhm.
you can go to spiritualmodem.com and go to the Reiki page. And
Okay.
I have a bunch of things up there. And if you feel like having a Reiki session, you can book one there too.
That was my next question. Do you have anything you want to share as far as like social media or where people could possibly see some of your information?
Yeah, spiritualmodem.com, and on Facebook and Instagram, it's Spiritual Modem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anything else that you'd like to share with everyone?
I think I'm good for the moment.
All right. Well,
My
I
hands
really.
are on fire. My hands are on fire right now, so I
Oh
might have to
boy.
do a little Reiki for you, Lauren, but we'll see what happens after
Maybe once
this.
the camera's off. But well, I really want to thank you for coming on and talking about this. It is something that I've been interested in. Like we've had a few talks about different things, as well as other subjects that you said you'd be okay with coming back and talking about. I think we could have some really uh, good conversations. We seem to, especially when like Zach, he's been
Mhm.
on the channel before, met you through the Zoom group as well, and
Yeah,
Michael as well. And a lot of times when it's a smaller group of people on there, we get into some pretty interesting conversations, and I always enjoy it.
yeah,
So,
yeah, me too.
so I think we could narrow a few things down and talk about some other topics as well. But thank you very much for agreeing to do this, and
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for
share.
having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thanks for sharing your knowledge. And yeah, but I think that about wraps it up for now. But thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye.